By the time you're watching this, I'll be in Hawaii capturing beautiful sunrises. And this is everything that I'm bringing in my camera bag for that trip. So stay around, let's get to it. What's up, y'all? It's the Project Photography back with another video, and today, before we get started, make sure to follow all of my socials down in the description bar below. By the time you're watching this, I will be in Hawaii shooting amazing landscape photography, eating incredible food, and visiting all of my family members. But today, we're just gonna be taking a look at what is inside my camera bag for my trip to Hawaii, and most likely what will be in my camera bag for the near future in 2024. So with that being said, let's dive in and talk about the Shimoda Action X30 for this trip in particular. Now, a few things that I really want to know is that in Hawaii, you can pretty much do one of two things. You can either go to the beach or go hiking. And I think that's where this bag really is going to excel at. I think the front part here helps to protect the bag as a whole. And I mean, I have beat the crap out of this bag and I've taken it to the islands before, and it just held up really well, especially because it rains pretty often. And I've never really had an issue with water getting into the bag itself because of the weather sealing. On top of it, as we look here, we have really good shoulder straps as well as really good hip belts. And I mean, this is absolutely massive for me, mainly because we're able to have way more comfortable, hikes as a whole. On top of it, we have expandable storage. And I think for traveling in particular, this is incredibly helpful. Because I have all my camera gear in the back, I can put extra stuff up here. One quick note is that I think and I don't think I've talked about this before, if I put too much camera gear in here, it does sag a little bit. But I don't think that'll be a huge issue because I'm actually not bringing a ton of camera gear. For me, I feel like this is pretty minimal compared to what I could bring. Let's talk about the tripod here. So this may look a little bit different than what I normally have. This is the Pete Design Travel Tripod, but there is a major difference. So first of all, I am not using the original ball head that comes with it. There are a few reasons for it that I really want to talk about in a future video, but having this ball head is just gonna, I think, change the way I shoot landscape photography. I've used the regular travel tripod ball head before, for the past like 4 years, and I feel like I just want a different change of pace, a different change of scenery, and the adapter wasn't that expensive. It was maybe like 20 bucks. So I just felt like it was totally worth it considering I already have the ball head. Now for the ball head itself, I have the Oben BE 117. Now this is an incredible ball head. I use it a lot for video mainly, but this will be my first time really dedicating an entire time using it for landscape photography. And in particular, it's gonna work really well with one of the cameras I have in here, mainly because it doesn't have an L bracket. So we're able to put it in vertical orientation incredibly easily without having to feel like we're really restricted. And of course, we know the story with the travel tripod itself. Incredible legs, incredible build quality. And one thing I really like about the universal ball head in particular is that it's just so flush. I don't have to actually move anything. So when I want to close down the tripod, I don't have to worry about, twisting it and whatnot. And it fits really well into the side of the Shimoda Action X30. Super compact, especially if I'm traveling through an airport. It just makes for an incredible lightweight setup. I mean, just look how well that sits against the camera bag itself. You're not gonna bump into anything, which is incredibly important, especially for travel. So that's pretty much it about the tripod. Nothing new. I think the best part about the Pete Design Travel Tripod in particular is the legs. So we're definitely keeping that. We're just changing the ball head so I can get a little bit of a different perspective. So now let's go into the back of the backpack itself. And this is gonna be a very interesting setup, I think, for a lot of reasons. First of all, I am bringing 4 lenses that essentially could do the same thing, but in particular for me, I won't be using them for the exact same thing at all. So let's start with the camera bodies. First of all, let's talk about the 2 Nikon Z6s. Now, for me, this is my main camera of choice. I have 2 of them mainly because I want to have one as a main and a secondary. One where I'm out shooting with the wide angle and then with the telephoto. The Z6 is incredible for me for multiple reasons. In a pure landscape photography sense, amazing dynamic range. We have L brackets on here to make it a lot easier to actually capture vertical images. And this is my main camera body that I've been using for the past, I want to say, almost 5 years now. We're gonna be able to capture some amazing landscape images. Of course, this is full frame, so image quality wise, we're gonna get fantastic photos. I mean, these are cameras that I've taken with me to Hawaii multiple times before, so this is absolutely nothing new. And I think having 2 of the exact same camera body just makes it a lot easier when shooting on location. I don't have to worry about the settings too much, and I can just switch between the two very seamlessly. And the last camera body that I'm deciding to bring is the Nikon Z30. Now, these are all of my camera bodies, but I think the Z30 just gives such a unique, interesting perspective, and is a big reason actually why I bought the universal ball head adapter, mainly because I can use it in vertical orientation without having to worry about the restrictions that the P Design travel tripod ball head would normally give me. And because it doesn't have an L bracket, I can't just slip it in vertical orientation really easily. I do have to put it in regular horizontal and then tip it over. And a big reason why I'm bringing the Z30 in particular, obviously content's gonna be way easier to make with this. I can use it on my tripod in particular, obviously have a great flip out screen. The part that I'm looking forward to the most is the APS-C size sensor in here, used with something like a 24-200 or even the Plena. This is gonna be an incredible camera to use, especially with those lenses in particular, because we're able to have that extra telephoto reach. We're turning our 24-200 into essentially a 36-300. Now that's a pretty big difference relative to a 200. I'm really happy with the image quality that's come out of the Z30, so I don't feel like, oh, we're gonna be missing image quality or any of that. And with the Z30 plus something like the 24-200, I can have the 14-30 in here, which covers everything from 14 millimeters all the way to 300 with essentially zero gap, which is fantastic. There's gonna be so many different landscapes that we can capture, and there's gonna be a lot of mountain peaks in particular. That is kind of my body setup. I mean, I like this setup a lot. We have 3. I don't feel like I need a 4th by any means. I think this is a really good kit in particular. So now let's move on to our lenses. Here we have 2 wide angle lenses. We have the 17-28 as well as the 14-30. These might seem like extremely similar lenses, in which they are in a lot of ways. Both wide angle zooms and can do a lot of the same things as each other. But here's the thing, right? So for my 14-30, this is gonna be my main landscape lens. And I'll be using it essentially for everything except for astrophotography, which is where the 17-28 is gonna come in. Because we have an f2.8 aperture, capturing astro will be a lot easier. And because we're in Hawaii, you can see the stars quite well actually. Light pollution is pretty limited. But with the 14-30, we're obviously getting better image quality. It is an S-line lens. It has better mechanics, like for example, an AF/MF switch, the locking mechanism, which keeps it a little bit smaller. And on top of it, we get 14 millimeters over 17. And honestly, to me, that does make a big difference. Especially 3 millimeters in the wide angle can be the difference between capturing things in landscape and not. And the 17-28 will be a better content lens. Obviously, this plus a Z30 would probably turn this into a 24-40, give or take. With an f2.8 aperture, which is absolutely massive. And on top of it, if I use the 17-28 with a Z6, we do get IBIS, so it's a better vlogging lens. I just feel like they cover such different bases. And at the end of the day, the 14-30 is going to be my main landscape lens. And the 17-28 can really fill in a lot of spaces that the 14-30 doesn't. So now let's move on to the telephoto lens that I'm bringing. And again, in a very similar vein to how my 14-30 and my 17-28 is set up, we have the 24-200, and then the 135 1.8 Plena. These are very different lenses relative to my 2 wide angles in particular, for a few reasons. First of all, my 24-200, much wider range in terms of the focal range than a 135, obviously. And like I said, pairing this with the Z30 turns into a 36-300. And now that's gonna give us a lot more extra reach. And of course, this is far more lightweight than the Plena. And honestly, I think the 24-200 is just a better landscape lens overall. And that's not to diminish the Plena, because the Plena honestly has far better image quality than the 24-200. We're talking about limited vignetting, far better sharpness, and honestly, I really like the 135 focal length. But to me, I don't really want to go on a trip and just bring one of these telephotos. I think because there's so many different options that we can capture, I think having this nice variety to go out and shoot. And plus, we're gonna be there for about like 11 days. So we're gonna be there for quite a while. These are 2 really good options for capturing those telephoto images. And I think the Plena is gonna be such an interesting lens to bring on this trip in particular. It honestly will be an incredible walk around lens, and probably the lens I use more than any other lens on this trip. Now, of course, everything else is pretty much miscellaneous stuff. We have our filters, just got a 3, 6, 10 stop from B+W. These are a little bit older, but they're gonna do the job just fine. And I have the 1 to 5 stop from K&F for my video. Nothing crazy, all fits in this little pouch right here. I'm obviously bringing my DJI mic for content purposes, of course. We only have to bring 1 step-up ring. It's a 67-82 millimeter, mainly going to be used with my 17-28, would probably only be for video. The 24-200 has a 67 millimeter filter thread, and so we can use our filters on that too. And then we have the GoPro Hero 9, which for me is just, I put it on my camera and let it go. I don't really shoot anything else with it, and I can't really put it underwater because it has the wind muffs on top. A rocket blower, of course, because we don't want dust getting into the sensors or anything. And then some spare batteries on the side here. Obviously got my Z6 batteries, plus the Z30 and a GoPro battery. But in terms of pure camera gear, this is it. I could absolutely bring a lot more. This is, to me, a pretty minimalistic setup. Obviously, we have a lot of overlap here, but they all accomplish very different things in my kit. So what do you guys think about my kit overall? What would you change about it in particular? And if you were to bring a kit to Hawaii, what would you bring? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Anyways, guys, that is pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today. And we're gonna have more Hawaii content coming up probably in the next couple of weeks when I'm actually there and shooting. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today. Please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.